Ethan Morales felt every note of it. He stood just inside the doorway of Kensington Jewelers. Rain dripping from the hem of his faded hoodie onto the spotless marble floor. His sneakers were worn thin at the soles. His jeans were clean but patched at one knee. In his hands, he clutched a small velvet box he'd bought at a discount craft store down the street. He didn't look like he belonged among crystal chandeliers and diamond displays, and everyone knew it. A tall woman draped in designer silk gave him a slow once-over. "Honey," she said loudly to the sales associate beside her, "I think he's lost." The associate's smile tightened. "Can I help you?" she asked Ethan. Her tone polite but clipped, the kind of politeness that keeps you at arm's length. Ethan swallowed. He hated this part, hated the way his ears burned and his palms went damp. I wanted to look at your rings," he said quietly. A man near the Rolex case snorted. "Window shopping's free, kid." More laughter. Ethan forced himself not to shrink. He'd promised his mother he wouldn't let people make him feel small. Still, it was hard not to feel like he was taking up space that wasn't meant for him. The sales associate gestured toward a display near the back. "Our sterling silver is over there." Translation: stay in your lane. Ethan nodded and walked past cases filled with diamonds that sparkled like frozen stars. He wasn't here for diamonds. He wasn't here to prove anything. He was here for Mrs. Patterson. Mrs. Patterson lived 2 blocks from Ethan and his mom in a weathered duplex on the edge of town. She was 73, widowed, and surviving on Social Security and pride. Ethan had been mowing her lawn since he was 10, refusing the $20 she always tried to press into his hand. "Save it for something that makes you smile," he'd tell her. 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Patterson had been crying on her porch. Her wedding ring, her late husband's final gift before he passed, had slipped off her finger somewhere. Between the grocery store and home, they searched everywhere. It was gone. "I feel like I lost him all over again," she whispered. That night, Ethan went home and opened a shoebox hidden beneath his bed. Inside was every dollar he'd earned from mowing lawns, walking dogs, shoveling snow, birthday money, odd jobs, years of quiet saving. He'd been saving for a used car. Instead, he counted it 3 times. It was enough. Now he stood in Kensington Jewelers, heart hammering, staring at a simple gold band in the case. "How much is that one?" he asked. The associate barely glanced at it. $489. Ethan nodded. He could feel the eyes on him again. He set his velvet box on the counter and carefully began pulling out crumpled bills, 10s, 20s, a few 5s, stacking them into neat piles. The woman in silk actually laughed. "Oh my God, is he serious?" The man near the watches shook his head. "This is not a pawn shop, kid." Ethan kept counting. 400, 420, 460. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the final bills down. $492, he said softly. "That should cover tax." The associate stared at the pile of worn cash like it might stain the glass. "Where did you get all this?" "I worked for it." The question stung more than the laughter. Before she could respond, a voice cut across the showroom. "Is there a problem?" The room quieted instantly. From the back office stepped a tall man in a tailored navy suit. Salt and pepper hair neatly combed, eyes sharp but calm. Daniel Morales, Ethan's father, but no one in the store seemed to know that. The associate straightened. "Mr. Morales, this boy is attempting to purchase a ring. With cash." Daniel's gaze shifted to Ethan. For a brief second, something unreadable flickered in his eyes, but his expression remained composed. "I see," he said. The woman in silk leaned closer to her friend. "This should be interesting." Daniel walked slowly toward the counter. He didn't look at the money first. He looked at Ethan. "Do you have enough?" he asked gently. Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir." "Is it for someone special?" Ethan hesitated, then lifted his chin. "Yes, it is." The store was silent now. Even the laughter had evaporated. Daniel turned to the associate. "Please ring him up." She blinked. "Sir, you heard me?" Reluctantly, she gathered the cash and began counting it again, her earlier smirk nowhere to be found. As she worked, the man near the watches muttered, "Kid must have hit the lottery." Daniel's eyes flicked toward him, cool and steady. "Or maybe he worked harder than you think." The man flushed. When the transaction was complete, the associate placed the small gold band into a velvet Kensington box, far nicer than the one Ethan had brought. Daniel took the box before she could slide it across the counter. He handed it to Ethan personally. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. The words landed heavier than any diamond. A murmur rippled through the store. The woman in silk frowned. "You know him?" Daniel finally faced the room fully. "Yes," he said, "I do." He rested a hand lightly on Ethan's shoulder. "He's my son." The silence that followed felt electric. Color drained from more than one face. "I believe," Daniel continued, his voice calm but carrying across the showroom, "that a person's worth isn't measured by their clothes, or the car they arrive in, or how they choose to pay." He looked directly at the associate. "Not cruelly, just honestly, it's measured by their character." Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. He hadn't wanted this. He hadn't come here to prove anything or expose anyone. He just wanted a ring. Daniel crouched slightly so they were eye level. "Tell them why you're buying it," he said softly. Ethan swallowed. His voice felt small in the vast room. "It's for my neighbor," he began. "She lost her wedding ring. It meant everything to her. I can't replace that one, but maybe this will remind her she's not alone." For a moment, no one spoke. The woman in silk looked down at her manicured hands. The man by the watches shifted uncomfortably. Even the associate's eyes glistened faintly. Daniel stood. "My son insisted on working every weekend instead of accepting money from me," he said. "He said it would mean more if he earned it himself." He paused, and I agreed. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, but somehow they seemed less dazzling than the quiet strength standing in worn sneakers beneath them. Daniel turned to the staff. "Let this be a reminder. Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect." The associate nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sir." Ethan tugged lightly at his father's sleeve. "Dad, it's okay." Daniel looked down at him. "I know," he said. And he did. They walked toward the door together. But just before leaving, Ethan paused. He turned back to the counter. "Excuse me," he said. The associate straightened again. "Yes?" "I'd still like to use my own box." He held up the simple velvet case he'd brought from the craft store. The associate hesitated, then gently swapped the packaging. As Ethan took it, she said quietly, "I'm sorry." He studied her face for a second, then nodded. "It's okay." Because he meant it. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled across the sidewalk, warm and clean. Daniel looked at his son. "You didn't tell me you were coming today." "I wanted to do it on my own," Ethan said. "You did." They walked in silence for a few steps. "Are you mad?" Ethan asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "At what?" "For not saying anything." "For letting them think that you didn't belong?" Daniel finished. Ethan nodded. Daniel stopped walking. "Son, if you only feel confident when people know who you are connected to, then you'll never really know who you are." Ethan absorbed that. "I didn't stay quiet to test you," Daniel continued. "I stayed quiet because I trust you." The words settled deep. That afternoon, Ethan knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door. She opened it slowly, her eyes still tired from weeks of quiet grief. "I found something," Ethan said, holding out the little velvet box. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The simple gold band caught the light. "Oh, Ethan." "It's not the same," he rushed. "But maybe—" She pulled him into a hug before he could finish. "It's perfect," she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they carried something softer than loss. Hope. From across the street, Daniel watched from his car. Not as the owner of Kensington Jewelers, not as a businessman, just as a father. He saw the way Mrs. Patterson clutched the ring to her chest. He saw the way Ethan stood there, awkward and shy, trying to brush off her gratitude, and he realized something powerful. You can own the most beautiful things in the world, diamonds, gold, entire buildings, but the rarest treasure will always be a heart that chooses kindness when no one is watching. Back at the store, the associate replayed the moment in her mind. The laughter, the assumptions, the quiet dignity of a boy who never once snapped back. The next day, when another teenager walked in wearing thrift store clothes and nervous eyes, she greeted him differently. "Welcome," she said warmly. "How can I help you today?" Because sometimes the most valuable lesson isn't displayed in a glass case. It walks in wearing worn sneakers, counting crumpled bills, and reminds everyone in the room what truly shines. And this time, no one laughed.